Our guests today have started a new kind of coffee company. They started this business in an apartment in the East Village only a few years ago, and they're coming after Starbucks.
Yes.
Jarrett McGovern and Melissa Kalamoff are the co-founders of Rise Coffee. What is Rise Coffee?
So Rise Coffee is an all-organic nitro cold brew coffee.
Nitro cold brew, meaning?
Yes. So meaning we let coffee beans sit in cold water in big beer brewing tanks. We have a brewery in Connecticut. The coffee beans sit in water overnight. Flavor naturally comes out. When you brew it cold, there's no acidity in our coffee, very small amount. So the coffee tastes naturally sweet. And then similar to what Guinness would do, we infuse our coffee with nitrogen. The nitrogen makes our coffee taste creamy, gives it a creamy head and a cascade. And basically, we can make black coffee taste like a latte without cream, sugar, or any bad chemicals.
It looks very appealing. So the obvious question I bet that you get sometimes is nitrogen safe? Obviously it is, but I mean, I just never thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, we breathe, I think 70%, 80% of the air is nitrogen. So basically what we do is we infuse our coffee with nitrogen, we get all the oxygen out. So nitrogen acts as a natural preservative, and it keeps our coffee tasting fresh for over a year.
You'll actually find nitrogen as a preservative in things that you use every day. So wine bottles, for example, they'll hit it with nitrogen at the end before they cork it. And it's just a really lovely, as Jarrett said, natural preservative to use.
Is that a question, though, that you get sometimes?
Sure. Yeah.
We just never thought about it.
Three, 4 years ago, I think Jarrett once got the question, "Is this going to give me cancer?" So no, it's not. But what we found is two things. One is that the market now knows way more about specialty coffee and way more about nitrogen-infused coffee than it did 2-3 years ago. And part of that is because larger players like Starbucks are really going after this category. And so with that market knowledge comes people saying, they're not just saying, "Oh, I like cold brew." They're saying, "Oh, I like nitro," and people know what this is. And so what we're doing is we're providing a super delicious craft option in this category.
So this is exciting.
It is fun.
How are you rolling? How are you rolling with this?
We're rolling out in cans, and we also sell our coffee in kegs. We actually started in kegs. Our first brewery was my apartment in the East Village.
Like a beer keg?
Yeah, 100%.
Like a beer keg.
And you would take it on tap, the coffee?
Yep, exactly. We set up in offices, restaurants, bars all over New York, tri-state area, Pacific Northwest. And what we find is that keg option really makes it a surprise and a delight. We have offices, fighting over who has the best coffee, and ours often wins.
You didn't have the Yankees as a client?
We do, yeah. We feel the dugout.
And the Red Sox, too.
No, do they know that? Their offices have kegs or cans?
In the clubhouse. So the players are drinking it, before they're going out. We hear a bunch of players in between innings go back in and grab a cup. It's just it's a natural, organic way to get really clean energy. And I think the players really appreciate that because they care about what goes in their body and it helps them perform.
What is it that is so-called bad for you about regular coffee that you buy from the cart on the sidewalk? Why is it so much better?
I think there's two things, a couple of things actually. So one, we spend a lot of time using really good water. I came from a water filtration background. Over 90% of coffee is water, so we make sure our water is purified. We actually add back in minerals so it tastes like spring water. So at the ground level, we use really good water. Secondly, by cold brewing it, there's not acidity in the coffee. And acidity can kind of give you like some heartburn and some negative effects on your body. And I think thirdly, we brew it cold. It's supposed to be served cold. And I think it's a refreshing way to get your energy as well. And then the beans that we use are all organic, so there's no chemicals in the beans either. So all in all, it's just a really clean beverage that gives you great energy. And by brewing it this way and choosing the beans that we chose, which are naturally a little chocolatey tasting, and the roast profiles we chose, it also tastes really good. It tastes almost indulgent with 0 calories.
Yeah, I'd also add that what Jarrett said at the beginning is that we tried to mimic the latte experience, but we're doing that without adding dairy, without adding sugar. And so the fact that you can essentially drink a latte without that in it makes it just truly better for you.
I think in addition to all of it too, the nitrogen, which we touched on before, it's a natural preservative and it gets the oxygen out so bacteria can't grow in the coffee, so it stays really fresh.
And I'm thinking that the fact that it is consumed cold is not a negative because coffee is usually hot. This is a whole new category, so it's a plus, right? I mean, do people ever try to heat it or
Yeah.
put it in a microwave or what?
Yeah, so cold brew coffee as a category has exploded. Within food and beverage, specialty coffee is one of the fastest growing categories, and cold brew and specifically nitro lead that growth.
Right.
So we're seeing just the average customer switching to this more and more every day. That said, we do heat it up sometimes.
Oh, you do?
I throw it in the microwave sometimes. In our cafes, we have a flash heater, so we serve hot nitro. If you go to our brick and mortar cafes,
Flash heater, not a microwave, it's a flash heater.
yeah, because we brew it cold, and so
Right.
we're essentially starting with the cold product and making it hot. But it has that beautiful flavor that you're getting by having it be nitrogen infused during its production process.
I want to hear more about how you funded and grew to this point and how you are taking advantage of this opportunity that you have created for yourselves. How'd you get to here and now what?
So we were really, really proud about what we were brewing, and we ended up brewing it and basically making small mini kegs. And we walked around New York City, we walked around Brooklyn, we walked into restaurants, and we said, hey, we have nitro cold brew coffee. Would you like to try it? One of the first accounts we got was a restaurant in Brooklyn called Colony, and as we walked into Colony, they were literally fixing their espresso machine. And they said, hey, you're here, you know a lot about coffee, can you fix our espresso machine? And we told them, we don't know how to do that in terms of actually mechanically fixing it, but we can fix it by providing you a solution that you're familiar with, which is they had 9 or 10 beers on tap, they had a wine on tap, so we replaced whatever their lowest performing thing on tap was, and we started having coffee on tap for them. So they had volume coffee that they didn't have to brew and worry about every morning, consistency, and a really cool experience for their customers. From that point, it grew from restaurant to restaurant in Brooklyn to Manhattan.
And office to office.
And then as people started going in and drinking the coffee, they said, hey, this is amazing coffee. Can I have this in my office? So we said yes. We rigged a kegerator, put a nitro stout faucet on it, and we started serving coffee in offices.
But when one restaurant in Brooklyn chose you, is that what gave you the legitimacy? Was that as big a break as it would seem to be?
So I think a lot of our story is about customer pull. So once that restaurant put us on tap, actually the next week a woman walked in and said, this coffee's amazing, where can I find it? Can I get it in my office? And she was at an architecture firm, which is a customer-facing experience. So a lot of her clients came in, started asking for coffee in their offices. We went from that one office in the spring of 2015 to somewhere between 100 and 200 offices by that fall.
Wow.
And so what that built for us was this profitable marketing machine where people were legally and happily addicted to our product, drinking it Monday through Friday, and they started calling us that summer and saying, I love your coffee, it's my daily go-to, where can I find it on the weekends?
What were you do? Were you in business at all before you called on that restaurant? Were you selling it locally in Connecticut or something? No.
That was
so
the
this
start.
was your first
That was the start, yeah.
knocking on doors.
Yeah.
How are you scaling?
Yes.
How are you coping now with growth?
So once people started calling us and asking for it on the weekend, that's the roar that the can makes when it opens, we built a can. And I always joke that we built the can in order to chase them home. And a can is a much more scalable product, right? You can sell it on grocery shelves, you can stock it at your house, versus a kegerator system. You actually need a little bit of an infrastructure to keep that thing going.
So the can is fairly new?
The can we launched 2 to 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And this format we relaunched this past January. So previously our can required refrigeration. Now our can can be stored in your pantry as well as your refrigerator. It should of course be consumed cold, but it allows us to scale nationwide in a much bigger way.
I think really importantly too, we started with black coffee.
Right.
We started with black coffee in a keg.
Yeah.
We started saying, how can we had people asking us from all over, I want this in my home. And we said, okay, well, let's get into a can. So our can has the nitrogen widget in it, and we started canning everything at our brewery, working really long days, and we said, okay, this black coffee is great, and we started selling it. But we said there's also people that come to our cafes that want lattes. So we said, okay, well, what kind of milk do they want? So we started testing out the market, and we said, okay, 70% of the people who go to our cafes drink dairy-free. So we said, okay, what's the best dairy-free milk that we can find? We started playing around with coconut milk and almond milk and cashew milk, and we found oat milk was actually the most popular one at our cafes. It appealed to people because it tastes naturally creamy, it's good for you, it didn't have a nut allergen. So we said, how can we create our own oat milk? We found organic oats in Finland, and we started playing around with creating our own oat milk that we then added to our lattes. And I think part of the way that we're scaling now are with not just black coffee, but with also 2 lattes made from oat milk. One's just a natural oat milk and coffee mix. One's the mocha that we're drinking right now with oat milk. And then thirdly, we said, let's also create an awesome latte with dairy milk. So we got organic grass-fed cows, and we made an awesome latte with it. So I think part of the way that we're scaling is also by offering awesome flavors and really focusing on awesome ingredients.
And you manufacture these cans yourselves at the brewery in Connecticut?
There are cans.
Yeah, we brew
The
everything at the
cans.
brewery.
Wow.
We buy the cans from the same company that sells Guinness cans.
Yep.
The bottom of every can, there's a widget, which you hear, and helps activate the nitrogen coming out.
Did you raise money from investors along the way?
We did a friends and family round at first,
Right.
and then we did our first Series A round and got some more institutional money.
And now does the fact that you're chasing customers home, as you say, with the cans, does this mean that you've had to do an agreement with a distributor, and do you have sales reps in Cincinnati this morning trying to get you onto shelves, and is
Yeah.
all that happening?
It's a great question. So I'd say that we're taking a 3-pronged approach. One is when you're getting on shelves, density really matters. So being on, frankly, like more shelves that are performing better in New York City alone is more important than being on a ton of shelves nationwide and performing kind of poorly. So we're really focused when we're talking about the Whole Foods and the Safeways of the world on the Pacific Northwest, so Oregon and Washington, and the tri-state area, so New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, with the idea that if we can sell New Yorkers and Seattleites and Portlanders on our coffee, like the home of people who love good coffee, that we're doing something right. The second is offices, which we've talked about, essentially building this beautiful ecosystem of super fans. And then the third is online. So you can find us through our website, as well as Amazon, Jet, Walmart, nationwide. And I'd say that's been a really exciting growth vehicle because it allows the folks in Austin and Denver and Chicago, across the country to get our coffee. And that actually has helped inform where we should grow to next.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah, next stops are California and Florida. We're launching those this spring.
It's a great story. You're hitting on all cylinders. So there's a Ben & Jerry's of ice cream. You have just met the Jarrett and Melissa of coffee. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Great
good one.
story.
Thank
Thanks.
you.